Sometimes noticing a small detail in a donor's office can change an entire relationship. Today, we're talking with an incredible major gift officer, Frank Mumford, who works for the Greater Twin Cities United Way. Frank tells a great story of a donor meeting, what he noticed in the donor's office, and how he used it to connect to the donor in a much deeper way. Frank also describes in great detail the skills he developed as a salesperson to help him be an effective major gift officer, which will help you think about your work in a new way. You'll definitely be inspired by Frank's story.
Welcome to the Nothing But Major Gifts podcast from Veritas Group, featuring Richard Perry and Jeff Schreifels. Twice a month, we bring you the latest and best thinking about major gift fundraising, so you can develop authentic relationships with your major donors. Here are your hosts, Richard and Jeff.
Well, we have a great guest for you today, and his name is Frank Mumford, and he's a major gift officer with the Greater Twin Cities United Way. Frank, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and answer some questions and chat with you guys.
Yeah, we love having major gift officers on because you're the ones doing the work. And who wants to hear from us all the time, right?
I know. Well, and the other thing is people basically say, well, those guys are consultants. You know, what do they know? I mean, now we do know a fair amount because we've been in this field for many, many years. But there's nothing like talking to a frontline person who's right in it like you are, Frank. So it's good to have you aboard.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Frank, tell us just briefly, like, what are you doing there? What is your job as the major gift officer for United Way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with donors who tend to give higher gifts. Our minimum threshold for major gifts is 5,000 plus. So, okay. And that's an annual gift of 5,000 plus. So I'm assigned to people and I get to work and build relationships, reach out to them and share the impact. So I'm laser focused on my task at hand. I try not to let other things, shiny objects pull my focus away. So I focus on the donors and sharing our generosity for what they make possible in our community and making it a better place.
So a question here, Frank, how do you manage to stay off of the shiny objects? No, seriously. The reason this is a serious question because a lot of major gift officers have trouble with that. So how do you do it?
Yeah. With meetings, with events, all this stuff, we tend to people try to pull you in different directions. And for me, I always ask the same question. It's what I'm about to do relate back to thinking, stewarding, and building relationships with our partners and our investors in our organization. And if the answer is no, it's a pretty simple answer for me is, unfortunately, that doesn't really pertain with what my main focus and goal is. And so that's how I fought it.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So what you're saying is the minute one of these items kind of comes into your existence, either a request by somebody, hey, Frank, why don't you do this, or an email, or well, let's include Frank in that. You stop and you say, what does this have to do with the donor? What does this have to do with my donor? And building and cultivating and lifting them up and pursuing their objectives and their passions and interests. And you say, well, nothing. And that helps you then move away from being attracted to it.
Yeah. And having honesty with my manager as well, is that's my mode. That's how I work. And if you have buy-in from your upper management, they understand if you don't show up to a meeting because it doesn't pertain to what my main focus is.
Well, that's another big point, an enlightened manager. So we have a number of managers, and probably the enlightened ones are listening on this podcast right now because they're open to input. But then there's a whole category of other managers that are not enlightened about major gifts, and so they pull their major gift officers in other directions, and hence you don't get the productivity that you desire.
Yeah. Well, we say boots on the ground here, and that's not butts in the seat. It's boots on the ground. And that means out doing what we do.
That's
cool.
great.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times the manager might not be enlightened, and it's the great opportunity for the major gift officer to enlighten that manager. Let them know this is the way this works, and I need your support.
Yeah.
And if they're good, they will.
And it's often in showing the connection between focusing on the donor and the economic result. That's usually that kind of education that helps.
Now, Frank, you've got a great background. You were in sales, and I would love to know, what did you learn in that environment that has helped you as a major gift officer?
Yeah. Well, I learned how lucky I am to be in the field I'm in. That's first and foremost. But the biggest thing I learned was persistence, objection management, learning what active listening actually means, asking for business and closing the sale, and then utilizing the phone. I think those were the main keys for me when I look back and reflect. I started out in sales right out of college, but I was a student fundraiser all throughout college. So it was a pretty easy transition, but some of the basis of what it taught me was just those main things: persistence, objection management, listening, asking for business, and utilizing the phone.
Do you mind going through each of those and kind of just expanding a little more on what each of them means in terms of your daily work?
Yeah, absolutely. So with persistence, I feel that, sometimes people have this one and done mentality. You gave it your best shot, but really you have to meet the donor where they're at. And a lot of times when you make that first phone call, you reach out by a letter or an email, timing might not be right for them. And so persistence and following up and really doing your due diligence of getting in touch with that person means you're doing right by the donor as well. If I gave $5,000 to an organization and I never heard from them, and the organization on their side thought, well, we're reaching out to them too much, I don't care how many times you try. Once you get in touch with me, that's when satisfaction happens as a donor. And so with persistence, I feel it's never too much as long as it's intentional and well thought out. And so that's persistence for me in a nutshell. But with objection management, that's another one. I was calling people, asking them for business around redoing and selling them financial, like credit cards, other fun things, mortgages. And it was a fun game because I got to learn a lot about people, and that's ultimately what made me more fascinated about major gifts. But it's that you're going to get people who they'll put up on a wall immediately, and it's overcoming that wall. It's building that trust, that relationship, and overcoming that objection to why are you calling, how you can keep them on the phone, and breaking down barriers within individuals within the first minute of the phone call. So that was objection management.
Yes.
And to properly manage an objection, you have to listen. And if you're not actually listening, because the first step in objection management is to repeat back to them what they're saying. And how can you repeat back to them what they're saying if you didn't actually listen to what they're saying? If you're thinking about the next thing you're going to say, or how are you going to respond, or it's canned, it's not authentic. So you actually have to listen to what people's needs, wants, desires are. And it's the same way with major giving. I mean, we're trying to find their philanthropic passions and their interests around what connects with their heart and the good they want to do. And to find that, you have to listen. You can't just go and do what I'm doing right now, which I'm talking. You can't just sit there and talk the whole time and think that they picked up on things. And so listening, asking questions. I mean, people remember more of the questions you ask and the responses they give than what you tell them. So understanding that just opens your ears up a little more. And then the next thing I said, asking for business. the number one reason people don't give is because they're not asked. Mm-hmm. And part of my job was closing the sale. I had to ask for their business, or else A, I wouldn't have a job. B, I was commissioned, so I wouldn't be paid. And so that was kind of forced almost, that we had to, but it was in their best benefit because of what I was offering in financial solutions, that I should ask for their business. And I think a lot of times people forget to ask for business. It's, if you don't, then what's it all for?
Now, why do you think that major gift officers might forget to ask for the gift? Like, did you have any theories or any ideas on that?
Yeah, fear. I think a big thing is fear of rejection. If you don't ask, then you're not going to be rejected. And once you overcome that it's not you, you have to overcome that fear. And the only way to overcome that fear is by asking for business. You have to get comfortable with it. You have to get comfortable with the no, and you actually have to get comfortable with it by doing it.
Exactly.
And so that's that aspect. And then utilizing the phone, I think that's the number one most underutilized thing. We tend to fall into the path of least resistance. And sadly enough, that tends to be email. How easy is it just to shoot off an email to a donor or to a colleague or anyone? It's just, you type it up and you send it. The thing about an email is, once again, the only rejection you're feeling is I'm not responding.
Right.
But there's no true, real rejection that you're giving. You can go on with your life, and if they never respond, they never respond. But picking up the phone, it's that one-to-one that people aren't used to getting anymore. And you can ask corporate CEOs, executives, how often they get called. They get 500 plus emails a day. How often do they get called? It's not very high.
That's interesting.
And I literally, I had a donor who I had emailed. I wouldn't say I was being lazy. I just wasn't trying hard enough. I sent him a couple emails, sent him some stuff in the mail, and I kid you not, I picked up the phone. He answered. We had a 5-minute wonderful phone call. He said to call him back. And that was literally the first time I attempted him on the phone, and he picked up and was very receptive of it. So it was,
So those are the 5 things you've transferred over from sales, about the whole business about persistence and objection management, being an active listener, asking for the business or asking for the gift, and then using the phone. Because it's one of the most underutilized mediums.
That's great advice.
That's great advice.
I'm really interested, Frank. Have you always been someone who was just fearless and not afraid to ask, or was there a moment that just helped you overcome your fear of asking? You're saying most people don't ask because of a fear. Was this something that was always easy for you?
No. I don't know if it's easy for anyone. There's always going to be a fear, but it's how you translate that fear into your benefit. When you look at people picking up the phone or even asking for business, there's always some element of fear, but being prepared, having a well thought out plan, and having a basis of why you're asking, and that it aligns with them, a lot of the fear erases. But utilizing those emotions to your benefit helps drive you forward. There was a news article. It was talking about the Olympians. They were interviewing them, and every time they said, "Are you nervous?" and they said, "No, I'm excited." And it's because what they did is they translated nervousness and those nerves and that feeling into excitement. And they almost tricked their subconscious and their brain into adapting to say, that's not fear. That's not nervousness. That's them excited about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, Frank, you were also in the direct response department of an organization prior to becoming a major gift officer. Now, how did that experience help you in your current role as a major gift officer?
Yeah, I think that was another very vital thing that I learned. I think as a major gift officer, you should spend time in where a lot of the quote unquote leads or your pipeline is coming from. And doing annual giving, it taught me, how to perfect my writing skills, because I think that's the one thing, writing appeal letters and writing from the heart to donors to connect with them at their heart, to give them money through the mail. I think that was one of the most beneficial things that I gained that I was able to utilize as a major gift officer. And then the other thing that I got out of it was analyzing data, and working with the right people. That's the biggest thing, is when you're doing direct mail, you want the best ROI on every single piece you do. Every so often you can do just this mass mailing and you're kind of casting a wide net, but you're still trying to be targeted because you want a high ROI on that mail piece.
Exactly.
And so when you start looking and analyzing data, it's very similar to how you sort, within the Veritas process, the 450 people you're going to get, where do you start? And you can use literally what you gain in annual giving and analyzing data to start sorting the donors who you're going to start with.
Yeah, data's our friend. We love data.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, tell us, what do you love most about major gifts? And then, what's one of your biggest challenges as a major gift officer?
Yeah. It's the relationships. No two person and no two relationship is the same. It's like the snowflake idea, I guess, but they're all different. And once you start meeting people and having that real relationship with them, it's beautiful. And you get to learn about, their kids and all these amazing things they've done, and maybe the struggles they've had and how they've overcome it. And, I'm blessed with where I work. I get to work with mainly executives at the C-suite and corporate CEOs, and it's Fortune 500 companies. And what I've come to find from meeting with these people is, they all care about other people, and they have a passionate, they have this passion for the community, and they're compassionate towards others. And, people have this like crazy thought that they're just different people. But once you get to people to this basis of a relationship, a lot of things are similar. And that's what's exciting. Plus, I guess the secondary thing, a subset, is the chase of getting meetings, getting in front of people, and the opportunity of what it's going to create to help better our community and help people. And that's kind of a subset of the relationship, but it's really those relationships is for me. And the biggest challenge, I would say, and it's time. Everyone wants time to go faster on a relationship. And if you go by the pace of your organization and not by the pace of the donor, you're going to miss some things.
Yeah. That's a nice point. Yep.
You're going to leave things on the table that, might have not been there. And I think that's the issue in a lot of organizations is, so them, let's get things done. Why don't you go ask them for a gift? And we're not at that point. And, it's an art and a craft and a science. And, I always say major gift officers are paid partly on their judgment. And that judgment is what I'm here to give on donors, and, not pushing relationships ahead because of revenue needs. And that's what I find is one of the biggest challenges, is trying to drown out everything else and just be able to focus on the donor.
So Frank, let me ask you a question on that. So now here's a CEO or a manager, and he or she has revenue goals to meet because they made a promise in the C-suite when they were doing the strategic plan that they would deliver this amount of net revenue to the organization, or gross revenue. And now they're depending on you, Frank Mumford, to do your part of it. And then you're saying back to them, well, hey, this is going to take time. It's not going to be on your schedule, manager. And they object to that. How do you handle that?
My first question I would have is, at what point did you pull me into that decision-making process?
To set the goal, the original goal.
Yeah. Oh. I mean, because if I'm not pulled into that, then what are you paying me for and paying me to be here for, if I can't help provide that insight and that judgment as well? So
basically you're saying there is, as authority figure, manager, you need to rely on my judgment as to the timing and the amount of various gifts from various donors, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's a matter of communicating effectively with your employees around certain people and having plans put out. I mean, when I use my marketing impact chart, that's one of the things is anyone in my organization can go and pull and look at it and know what I'm going to ask when. Mm-hmm. And because we're an annual gift running revenue organization, I ask every year, just like most places do. Mm-hmm. But it's that major gift that we're looking at moving people towards. And if they want to know more about that, that's when you bring me into the judgment and the conversations. Mm-hmm.
What are some of those tools that you use that helps make you a better major gift officer?
Yeah. Well, I read. I think that's the biggest thing is always being a learner.
Yeah.
100%. If you're not reading and growing, as well as having fun, but if you're not reading and growing, then what's the point? I say that to people all the time. What's the point if you're not growing yourself as an individual or learning more? But honestly, I mean, the Veritas methodology, the marketing impact chart, I was seventh grade, found out I have ADHD. What does that mean? It just means that I have a harder time focusing. One thing that I was excited to do is when I transitioned into major gifts, that I was able to focus. Because when you look at annual giving and a lot of those tasks, you end up doing events, direct mail, email marketing. You get into a lot of this like disconnected pattern of doing a lot of different things. And with major gifts, it goes back to my one main focus. And so, having that focus, utilizing like the Veritas ideals with the marketing impact chart actually helped me focus and create successful and intentional roadmaps. When I moved and started working and doing major gifts, I was lucky enough to start off with the Veritas programming. And that was the one thing that I feel a lot of major gift officers are missing is an actual roadmap of point A to B. You're sitting there and a donor gives a gift or you're assigned a donor and you say, now what?
Right.
And what the marketing impact chart and Veritas and the ideas behind all this says, now what, this is what, and it's inputting and filling in strategy for every single donor. So, okay, this month they're going to get an article or they're going to get proof of performance that their gift's making a difference, or I'm still trying to qualify them. You get a roadmap, and that was vital for me to keep me focused.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Hey, we love to ask this question for every MGO. Because, it's a tough job. It's not easy. And so I just want to ask, how do you balance that work and life environment and having fulfillment in both of those areas?
Yeah. Well, number one, it's priorities. And number two, it's what do I want to be remembered for? My wife works full time. We have a 3.5-year-old toddler who goes to Montessori school every day. Mm-hmm. And my wife does sales. She actually works more hours than me, which is fun. So it's having that communication with her of I take care of our son in the morning. She picks him up in school in the afternoon, evening. And it's being able to have that open communication of who's doing what. But it goes back to priorities. What's, if I was to die tomorrow, what am I going to be remembered for? Mm-hmm. And so understanding that, and then properly utilizing and managing your time. I utilize my calendar to say these are my tasks, and I input things of donor communication, donor calls, everything of that sort, mm-hmm. so that I know when I end the day that I got done what I wanted to get done, and I felt good about it.
That's great advice.
I like that. What am I going to be remembered for? That's an important reflection to have almost on a daily basis. What am I doing today that I'm going to be remembered for? And making sure you have balance.
And it's my sister told me this saying a long time ago. Then she quit her job and went around the world for 3 years. So I'm not saying go do that, but it's are you working to live or living to work?
Mm-hmm. I tell you, yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
Oh, I was just going to say it's a choice.
Yes, mm-hmm. It is. So one final thing that if you're comfortable telling the story, I'd love for our listeners to hear it. But oftentimes people say, well, this whole moves management thing that you do and talking to donors and engaging with donors is really a sophisticated, complex thing. And your story about the dolphin story is one that is interesting to me because it's actually quite simple yet very profound. Do you mind sharing it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Richard had the pleasure of hearing this story already. So, I was meeting with a donor. He's a corporate executive, and we had a 30-minute visit, which is a long time, a lot of times. And we're ending the meeting, and I looked down, and I've been given water, and I looked, and his coaster had a dolphin on it. And then I looked on his wall, and he had a picture type thing of a dolphin. And so as I'm walking out, I said, Jim, what's with all the dolphins? I saw it on the coaster. I like dolphins. They're pretty cool creatures. I saw it on the wall, and he goes, dolphins are the most intelligent animal in the world outside of humans. And I'm innately fascinated by them. And I said, really? Well, that's cool. And so I turned around, and about 3 weeks later, I was browsing through BBC, and I came across an article that talked about how dolphins can mimic porpoises, their sounds. And there's not a lot of creatures that can actually cross communicate with other animals. And so it was research said that they could talk to them. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I sent that article to him, and this person, every time I email him after that, always responds. I visited him multiple times. Because I know him on a different level.
Yeah.
It's just something else. And so that's the dolphin story.
Yeah. So the thing that fascinates me about that story is we're always saying to folks, figure out the passions and interests of your donor. And what you did is you expanded that beyond the organization. You basically said, well, this guy's passionate. This Jim is passionate about dolphins. And so therefore you're going to serve that passion by uncovering some interesting information and content and sending it to him, which brought him a great deal of pleasure and had the relationship deepened substantially, which is just, it's a great story. It's very simple on one level, but very complex. So thanks for sharing that.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people are people, and they have their things they care about. And if you know what they are, then, I send stuff to my friends. They're my friends, and I know what they care about. So I send them articles and stuff like that. It's the same thing. That's how we need to treat our donors, is that they're real people.
Yeah. Well, that's a great note to end on.
Yes.
And gosh, Frank, thanks so much. You've been a great guest, and I know that those listening pulled a lot of great information.
Very good information. Thank you, Frank.
And
well, thank you.
Yeah. And for those listening today, I just want to let you know that there's a couple of free things for you. One is a white paper called The 6 Secrets to Becoming an Extraordinary Major Gift Officer, which you can tell Frank is one.
Oh,
already.
He is one, yeah.
So that's a free white paper for you. Go to veritasgroup.com to get that. And then Frank also mentioned this whole thing up called a marketing impact chart.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to the same download tab and get that and upload that marketing impact chart for yourself. So you can start planning your own strategy with all of your donors.
Fantastic tool. And like Frank has said, it helps you create an individualized roadmap for every one of your donors, which is very good. Well, it's been really great talking with Frank.
So good. Frank, thanks so much again.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.
And thank you for everyone for listening. And we'll see you next time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Nothing But Major Gifts podcast from Veritas Group. Richard and Jeff also write an ongoing blog that you can subscribe to for free at veritasgroup.com. Please join us again next time.